You know, every year, the folks that attend our conferences tell us that this opportunity to network and share with one another is one of the most important benefits. And so this year, the whole theme of the conference is just that. It's the power of peers. And as I mentioned, the majority of our speakers, whether it's a keynote speaker or a breakout presenter, they are well-known consumers in a wide variety of fields, and they've been successful in their fields. And our hope, and my hope, is that when you leave this conference, you'll really feel that this whole notion of the power of peers is on your side. It's new friendships, it's new solutions, maybe novel solutions to old problems, and practical tools that will sort of give you a lifetime of wellness.
It's wonderful to see everybody here. And I think we have such a large crowd because those of us with bipolar and depression have trouble with relationships. That's so true. Or people have trouble with us when we're untreated. That's also a problem. Well, today is on interpersonal relationships, so we're going to hit everybody. Partners, dates, my main problem. Mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters. Let's stick more to the family, sexual relationship kind of, and I mention sexual because most of us also have a lot of issues with that because it brings up so many emotions that take us over the top so many times. And instead of co-workers and all that kind of stuff, let's keep our questions, etc., into that interpersonal relationship area. This session is going to have a lot more Q&A. For those of you who saw me yesterday, we didn't get enough time for Q&A. So I'm going to speak for a little bit, and then we're going to start doing questions. Because what I've found is that with bipolar disorder, we all have the same questions. Because it's a general illness with all the same symptoms. So it makes sense we have the same issues. So that's why Q&A, I think, is so fantastic. And I promise to speak slowly tonight, because yesterday I was... You should see when I'm manic. Really bad. How many here were at the session yesterday? Oh, okay, so a lot of you. I will just briefly tell you what my background is. And everybody, if you would not let me forget, I got to tell you about my books because they're out there, but they're not really self-explanatory about all of them.
But they're awesome. But they were awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. One thing I will say is that 2 years ago, I was getting ready to get ECT. I could not get my depression under control. I could not stop the rapid cycling. It was so horrifically bad. Now, I have my treatment plan, which has kept me alive pretty much since 1999 when I wrote it. But as you guys know, even with the treatment plan, we struggle a lot. And then guess what? It was a medication problem. I was on the Lamictal and thought it wasn't working, so I cut it in half. Is that the dumbest thing you could possibly do? And I write the books on it. But I was positive. Lamictal is for depression, right? Actually, a lot of our drugs have a huge amount of relief, whether they're for the specific area that they say they are or not. So Lamictal was taking care of my psychosis, my rapid cycling, my OCD, my anxiety, and a lot of the depression. So when I went off that, I started rapid cycling probably about 7, 8, 9, 10 times a day, and we couldn't get it to calm down. So I had my letters for ECT, I had my doctors okay, and then I'm with my therapist, and she said, Julie, you seem a lot more psychotic than usual. Has anything changed? And I went, well, I reduced my Lamictal. And right there, the light went on. I started to increase my Lamictal back to my very high dose of 500 milligrams. And I started to get back to my baseline, which is about 50% bipolar disorder. I experienced depression about 75% of the time and have done so since 1995. But I taught myself how to work and how to have a life and have really successful interpersonal relationships. In 1995, I lost all of my friends because I was a mess. That's when I was diagnosed. I was paranoid, I was needy, I cried all the time, I didn't understand boundaries. And then one day, I remember, I said, I don't want to live this way anymore. So I had my treatment plan and I sat down and I said, there's got to be a better way to have better relationships. So I started writing, and I started thinking, and I turned myself into a good friend, daughter, sister, and partner. For those of you who haven't seen me speak, I should let you know that along with going to the ECT. Until last year, I was not able to speak in public very well without getting severely paranoid. But as my management plan, as I always said, is taking over my extremely increasing symptoms, I've been able to get out more and do a lot more in life that I couldn't do before. So it's really exciting for me to be here because this is a dream. And I told the story yesterday in 95, 96, when I used to walk the streets of Seattle because I was so sick. I didn't know which direction to go in. I used to stand on the corner. Eventually, I'd end up in the library with all the other mentally ill people, which you might have. If you ever go to a downtown public library, there's a lot of people with schizophrenia, a lot of people with probably some bipolar sitting around who can't read because of their lithium or their other drugs that they're on, taking the newspapers, that kind of thing. And I remember walking downtown Seattle, and I looked at people coming out of the big hotels with their name tags. And I told this story yesterday. I was like, I want to come out of a hotel one day with a name tag. I'm like, that is so, it's still thrilling for me. And I keep my name tags to remind me that just a couple years ago, I would be so ill from this that I'd come home and be rapid cycling for a couple weeks. But I have taught myself year after year after year how to manage the illness well enough. Another thing is when I got here, I was a little bit sick. And so I remembered what I need to do and still managed to miss a dose of my medications yesterday morning. So it's hard. It's a difficult illness. So let's get into, I'll tell you my story really briefly. And today is a question and answer session, and I'm very excited about it. I got married to a wonderful man in, I'm not really into marriage that much, so I'm trying to remember the year we got married. Because he was French, and so we had to sign some papers. We were living in Japan. But it was in the 90s, in the early 90s. He was a wonderful man, and he had always had depression, and I knew something was going on in his family, but he was a wonderful person, but little did we know that both of us had bipolar disorder at the time, and he has bipolar 1, I have bipolar 2, so mine's chronic, and I've been going around, I've had it since I was 17, but his had never fully come out. So when we moved to Seattle in 1994, he started getting really strange. And by the evening of his birthday in 1994, he became incoherent. He was so manic and psychotic that he looked like this, and he was sweating, and he was saying really weird things. And I finally, you're getting the shortened version of this story, it's a rather long story. Finally, I called the emergency room, because we're all at this party with this calm, wonderful man who's saying, I have the answers to all of your problems. I have the answers, and you better listen to me. And you don't know how to park, and you don't know how to do anything. And no one listens to me. And we are all looking at him going, who is that? And so from that night on, we started the odyssey in hell of him being so ill that he was basically, you know how it is, you don't take your meds, you are kicked out of your hospital. So he's kicked out of his first hospital because he believed that water would cure him, and he refused medications. Finally, this wonderful man became so psychotic and manic that I had to commit him to 72 hours. And it was horrible. A lot of people would talk to him instead of me. They would ask him if he wanted to be in the hospital, and I'd be going, are you crazy? He can't even dress himself or brush his teeth, and you're asking him whether he wants to be in the hospital? You've got to be kidding. But that's what I experienced. And even now it's a lot worse because of, certain situations where a lot of family members cannot get information about us when we get sick. So we really need to work on that. But that's a different lecture. And so he was in the hospital for 3 months, 2 months in restraints. They wanted to send him home, believe it or not, because there wasn't enough room in the hospital. And I had to go to court. My brother was appointed his guardian ad litem. They would not let me do that, even though I was married to him. We went to court, and he's sitting there in restraints, in his wheelchair, and the attorney that was appointed to him looked at him and said, Judge, I think he's ready to go home. And the judge, I'm not kidding, and the judge looked straight at him and said, Ivan, do you think you can go home? He goes, yes, just like this, from his wheelchair, in his restraints. Yes. And I almost started screaming. And my brother and I were sitting there, and I just really thought I was going to faint. Then the judge asked him again, and Ivan did this. Has Julie been shot? And they put him back in the hospital. So that's quite a story. He stayed in the hospital for another month. I made a huge mistake. Instead of sending him to the state hospital, I missed him so much, I brought him home while he was psychotic. Nobody told me that he could go into a downswing. He went straight into suicidal, intense depression, went back into the hospital, tried to buy a gun, came back home, got Haldol, which was wonderful for him. But I had to take care of him literally. My brother and I had to put him on suicidal watch for 24 hours a day for a couple months. Then, unbeknownst to me that I had bipolar, my depression got worse and worse because we all thought it was just depression. And I went down and down and down. And eventually I couldn't take care of him anymore. So I sent him to his mom in France where he was put in a French hospital, which are often better than a lot of, even though we had very good hospital care, but in France it's more in a family kind of setting. I then spiraled down and down and down. Didn't know what was going on. I missed him terribly. He came back home and I started to do a little bit better, but then I started to get manic, not knowing that I had bipolar 2. And by that next year, I said, I don't love you anymore, Ivan, I can't take this. And I got on a plane and I went to China. Now, who goes to China by themselves in 1995? That was pretty funny. I just packed my bags, went, got a visa, got on a train to LA, got to China. I get to China, there's nobody there. It's not like it is now. There was maybe one skyscraper in Shanghai. I actually got off the plane in Beijing, slightly manic, and nobody was there. My bag was sitting on the carousel and no one checked my passport. So I go get into a taxi, I go to this hotel, then I get in another taxi, I go, take me to a Chinese school. I went to a Chinese school, and I am not kidding. I went to school every day and I learned to speak Chinese well enough to get around in 5 weeks. Now, if we could ever bottle mania, if we could just bottle this stuff, my gosh, we'd all be rich. I was speaking, you know, 我是老师, 你好, 我是 Julie, everywhere. I talked about Chairman Mao with my taxi drivers. I got tickets to the Great Wall. I learned to say mayo, which means no way. I learned to say tai bueno, that's disgusting. And I spoke Chinese the whole time. Finally, my mom was so worried that she came and got me. But she didn't know what was going on. And I was in a good mood when she got there. So we decided to travel around. And you know, a lot of family members don't know what to do, so they just protect us by giving us money, by helping us out, by bailing us out of school, by helping us because they don't know we have bipolar. We started to travel around, and I started to get sicker and sicker. By the time we hit Hong Kong, I was psychotic. I stayed out all night drinking, and thank God there was no way I could have sex, because I would have. I am so glad that my mom, that I finally came home. Imagine how scared she was. I come home roaring drunk, and I looked in the mirror, this was 1995, and I said, oh my God, I have a serious mental illness. So I did what everybody does. I got on a plane, I went back to Hawaii where my mom lived. I saw a doctor, she said, oh my God, you're depressed, and put me on an antidepressant. Boom, straight back into mania. I call Ivan and I go, I'm cured! Oh my God, let's have sex! It's better! You can touch me! So I go back home, and you know what happens. Antidepressant, Buspar, Wellbutrin, please. Really, there should have been some questions asked about mania. Even now, it's still a problem. And I went down when I was with Ivan, never even knew about bipolar 2. So I thought, oh my God, I never went to the hospital with mania. There's no way I could be like Ivan. So I thought I had OCD. So I go to the doctor. Finally, I was diagnosed with rapid cycling, bipolar 2 with psychotic features in 20 minutes. So since age 17 to age 31, I had classic bipolar 2, with sometimes up to 3 months hypomania, but they always happened when I was traveling, like China or Japan or Europe, my first manic episode. So when I was finally diagnosed, I thought, that's it, bipolar, that's the answer. I'll be cured, it'll be fine, I'll take meds. 3 years later, after 23 medications, 80 pounds, not kidding. I should have the picture up here to show me 80 pounds heavier. 80-pound weight gain. I finally said, enough. I had a hallucination where I had seen my wrist cut, and I looked down, it looked like they were cut, I looked back up, I looked down, it's a hallucination. I said, no more meds, and I'm pro-meds, by the way, I take Lamictal, but at the time it didn't work. I said, no more meds. I sat down and I wrote my treatment plan, called the health cards, I'll talk about that later, and I said, I don't want to die. And I don't know how this happened, but I sat down and I said, wait a minute, we all have an illness that's the same. Why are we being treated individually like we all have a personal problem? If we have the same illness that has the same symptoms all over the world, why aren't we treated like a group, like someone with an illness, like someone with diabetes, with the same treatment plan? So I sat down and I wrote one. I got my life back. And that's where I went to about my 50% symptoms instead of 100%. Then, to make a long story short, I got better and better, enough to start writing, which was my dream. In 2000, I wrote down the health cards. In 2002, I wrote my first book, Loving Someone with Bipolar Disorder, that was actually about Ivan and myself when he was in the hospital. Then I was asked to write Take Charge of Bipolar Disorder, and then I just finished Get It Done When You're Depressed. My books keep me sane, but I wrote all of my books on maybe 15 to 20 hours a week because I can't work full-time, and all of my books were written when I was depressed and psychotic, because when I'm manic, all I do is get creative and outline. So you can learn to do things when you're depressed and psychotic. And that's what my book, Get It Done When You're Depressed, is about, because I wrote that book about how I function, even though having chronic, pretty much 24-hour-a-day bipolar disorder, so that we can all get out and have relationships and have a good life. I am sick most of the time. The longest period since 2002 I've been stable is 33 days, and they were wonderful because they weren't manic. And I was like, this is what people get to experience? Sitting around, watching videos, hanging out, having fun. No wonder people don't get a lot done, because when they're well, they just want to hang out, have fun, be with their friends, whereas a lot of us are just going and going and going because we want to get better, or we're manic, or something like that. And so now, here I am today, 13 years later, since reading Dr. Jameson's book, An Unquiet Mind, really the only decent book I think that was out in 95, the only hopeful book. And I am now well enough to travel and come to a place like this. I monitor bipolar disorder 24 hours a day. And the reason I say that is sometimes I wake up at 3 a.m. crying because I'm so depressed. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and don't want to get out of bed. Sometimes I bounce out of bed because I'm so happy. I have taught every single person in my life to help me manage this illness through my treatment plan, and every single person wants to do it. I'm considered everybody's best friend, best partner, best family member, because I do monitor myself 24 hours a day. And you guys can do the same thing. We actually, as people with bipolar disorder, can have better relationships than people who don't have it. Those of us who manage it are like, is this going to make me sick? Is this a good person to have in my life? Am I treating this person well? Could I be doing more to have a better relationship? Most people don't do that if they don't have a mental illness. Unless they're, Wayne Dyer or something, or Oprah. So that is something I think is so important. So that's my odyssey in a short way. Let's see if I got 10 minutes. It was 10:56. Yeah, 11:12. That's pretty good. So what we're going to start to do now are questions and answers. We're going to do dating, which is my hardest thing. Sexual relationships, relationships with brothers, sisters, mothers, and fathers. Then if we have time, we'll move into colleagues, because work and bosses and that kind of thing.
I'm an activist. I've been out as both gay and bipolar since I was a teenager. What I find very interesting in the gay community is 99% of the people who are out as gay are not out about their mental illness. I know one person who's out about their mental illness who's not out about being gay.
Mm-hmm.
So,
great question, and I have actually a good answer to that. In the 60s, we had the sexual revolution. In the 70s, we had the feminist revolution. In the 80s and 90s, we had the gay revolution. In the 90s, we also had a interpersonal kind of, self-help, that kind of thing. And so, as I've watched being diagnosed in 95, I made a decision in 95 that I would tell everybody I had bipolar, because I had no idea what I was doing. But most people were very open about that. So I say 60s sexual revolution, 70s feminist, 80s the codependent, sort of what they call the me decade. 90s we had sort of a lull, didn't we? We got into the dot-com boom, etc. I think 2000 is going to be the years that we talk about mental illness, because we are having, if you think about it, we are going through a revolution right now. Everybody knows what bipolar disorder is. It was on the cover of Time magazine. And yes, I think that the diagnosis of children is a huge issue. And I don't really do the issue of children as much, but because the fact that childhood diagnosis of children has increased in 40% in the last 10 years, don't think that's a good thing. But it's a good thing for those of us with bipolar, because I think that we can now talk to people, at least in our lives, a lot more freely. Work is still a different situation, but we can talk more freely in our personal lives. Every single person I know has to know I have bipolar because they ask me what I do. I've never had one person say, oh my God, that's disgusting. Instead, you know what they say? That's amazing that you live with that and you're able to function. Because they've read the books, they've seen the PBS shows, and people have stood up. The gay revolution that started was a mass movement. How can you ignore the fact that it's considered 10% of people in this world, or 10% of the United States have or are homosexual? How can you ignore when they all stand up and they say? It's considered that 5 to 6% of us have bipolar, up to 20% have a depression, up to 1 to 2% have either borderline or schizophrenia, and when you get into dissociative or PTSD, you are hitting high numbers. If we all stand up and we say, hey, I've got a mental illness, they cannot ignore us. And they cannot, I sound like I'm on my soapbox, they cannot, I am, it's not made of soap. So they can no longer say, oh, mental illness is this or that. They can't discriminate against us as homosexuals like Oscar Wilde were put in jail. They can't do things to women like they used to do in the 70s where we were secretaries. And they cannot do it to us now because there's too many of us. So that's the answer to that question. Okay. Go ahead, Sue.
Yes, I'm going to be 58 in October.
I'm going to repeat it.
I didn't get married until I was 28.
She got married at 28.
I had a great, from 18 to 28, had a great life.
Great life, 18 to 28.
I was bipolar, obviously, but I just had a great life. I mean, dating, and...
Sex.
And anyways...
Oh, if you're bipolar and you're dating, you're having a lot of sex. Or either if you're bipolar and you're dating and you're depressed, you won't let anybody touch you, so...
Anyways, I was very happily married for almost... I was divorced when we were married 29 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so now I'm gonna start
Are
dating.
you in the dating world?
Well, I don't know if anybody ever asked me for a date. I don't have a date, okay? And I'm like, and I'm bipolar, and I'm, divorced, and I'm older, and I don't look like I did when I was 20, and I'm like, I got all these issues, and how much do you tell, your new dating partner, I don't want to turn them off right off the bat, but I want to be honest. And
Well, I think that's a wonderful question. And the question is, if you're starting dating, especially later in life, because all of us, I think, are out of... There's probably a few people who are in their teens or 20s, but a lot of us are in 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, etc. Dating is one of the most difficult personal relationships you can have because it's usually with a stranger. Which is one of the reasons we rush into relationships so quickly is because we don't want to be in that dating situation. It's horrible. I have a lot of girlfriends and guy friends who are dating, and they go through a lot of what we do, but theirs is at this level, ours is up here. That's the problem. And if we can learn to bring our level down to a little bit closer, we can date more successfully. But I'll tell you right now, I stopped dating last year because I couldn't really deal with it. And I spent the last year creating a plan to date. I have to tell people I have bipolar because you always talk about your job at the beginning. I do not feel you need to say you have bipolar on your first or second or third date. Goodness gracious, are they going to tell you they have hemorrhoids or something? I mean, it just is like, I don't see why I have to tell them. But I do feel that if you find a person who is right for you, that person has to understand that you have bipolar. It's not even an option. So you'll know when you're dating how that person reacts to the bipolar disorder diagnosis, whether that person is right for you. I've had a million dates since I started dating at age 38. Do you know that almost, and I'm not kidding, almost every man I've ever gone out with when we talk about bipolar said, oh, my mother has that, my sister has that, my friend has that, my coworker has that. I've seen it on the TV, I've done this and this and this. So you're not dropping a bombshell on them as much as you think. And that's one thing. But this is personal stuff. I would wait, absolutely wait, until you know someone well enough and you're thinking about having even more, 2, 3, or more dates. And I would say, I have an illness called bipolar disorder. You might have heard of it. But one great thing about this is that I've worked so hard on this. I'm on meds. And I really feel that a lot of my friends say that I am really easy to talk to. I'm understanding. And I am really someone who wants to hear about your life. And I find you very interesting. Boom. Bipolar's talked about. You don't say, I'm sick all the time, I've done this, I cry, I get suicidal. If you're mean to me, I'm going to call you and take pills. Yeah. I mean, really. I am such a believer in telling people in a very pragmatic way. If someone offers you a piece of cake and you have diabetes, what are you going to say? Well, actually, I have diabetes, I don't eat cake. I miss cake, but I don't eat cake. You're not going to go, and I have an insulin pack here, and I have to take my insulin here, and I have to do this. I see bipolar as exactly the same thing, but only if it's treated. If we have untreated bipolar disorder, we're going to have bad relationships. If we're treating it carefully with our meds, using our friends, wouldn't someone be lucky to have a relationship with us? Because we know adversity, we know what it's like to have troublesome relationships. And another important thing about this, when you meet a guy or a woman, they are not your confidant until you are sure they are the right person. Your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your friends, those are the people where you go, oh my God, is he going to call me? I'm checking my phone 50 times a day. Oh my God. You don't call him and go, when are we going out again? Oh my God, I get so stressed when I'm dating. Oh my God, let's go out again. When are we going out? And the guy is like, oh my God, I never want to see this woman again. Even though you might be a wonderful person within a relationship. So pull back. Learn how to date. Learn how to take care of yourself before you go out into that shark-infested world of dating. Because I think we all can date successfully, but it takes a lot of work on our part. I'm going to start dating in January. I made a decision. All of my friends know this, and I had a tarot reading the other night, and it said I was going to start dating in January. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. It's pretty awesome. So wait, and then make sure it's the right person, and they will understand, because they're going to know someone with bipolar or depression, for sure.
Well, one date that might understand your would be another bipolar. Do you have any comments about bipolar dating bipolar?
Well, having done it for 10 years, I'll tell you one thing. A treated person with bipolar disorder, dating another treated person with bipolar disorder can definitely work. But let me tell you, I will not date another person with bipolar disorder if I don't have to. It is so much work. It is so much effort. But if I fell in love with somebody with bipolar disorder, goodness gracious, of course I would. But I have to be honest. My illness takes most of my time. But if I met someone with bipolar disorder who has managed bipolar, of course I'd date them. If they're going in and out of the hospital, if they're not taking their meds, I couldn't handle it. But yes, believe it or not, a lot of people with bipolar meet each other and do get married. It's not uncommon because we run in the same circles. If you think about it, we're this little tight little group here. We have the same language. And so yes, as long as they're being treated. Absolutely.
And they have great sex, right?
Yeah, well, sex is, listen. You know, my mom reads all my books because she's one of my editors, and it's embarrassing for me. She knows that I had sex in her backyard because she found my belt. She came in and she goes, Julie, your belt was in the backyard. I was manic. I go, thanks, and walked off. Imagine what it was like for her. So we need to talk about sex and what bipolar does to sex, for sure. Hello, Denise.
Hi. You talked about you came up with a plan. Because I know for me, one of the problems I have is I take people hostage.
Yeah, so she was saying I have a plan for dating, and she takes people hostage, which a lot of us have done. Mm-hmm.
And you know, when I'm depressed, I don't want to marry you. When I'm manic, you know, come with me on my flight,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. And they can't keep up with me.
Right.
When I'm manic. And does your plan include that hostage part?
Mm-hmm.
You don't make them.
Absolutely.
How did you go about doing that?
She was asking if my plan includes how not to take people hostage. Another way I call this is neediness. Taking hostage, OCD, psychotic, when you're going to see me, what's going to happen. Most of us with bipolar disorder need a plan. Think about it. We need structure. Dating is not planned. You might meet a woman or a man who likes you a lot, but they're not going to say, let's go out tomorrow night. But we're more comfortable, aren't we, with people who say, let's go out tomorrow night, because it lets us feel like we know what's going on. But true dating, where people really like each other, it takes some time. Sometimes it takes months, which is just crazy to me, because I always meet guys when I'm manic, and I moved in with my ex-husband a week after I met him, and I married my first husband, who was a wonderful man, 2 weeks after meeting him. So, let's be real. And they were good relationships, but, so taking someone hostage can happen with a mother, father, sister, brother. Dating makes it worse. Anytime you add sex, anytime you add sexual feelings to a relationship, you're going to have trouble if you have untreated or having some trouble with bipolar disorder. Our hormones go crazy. There are hormones that, is it called oxytocin, the hormone that a woman gets when she wants to nest and be with a man. You have testosterone that comes sexuality, which can lead to aggression and fear and worry. So right there, it's hard enough. Taking someone hostage is because you're not treated well enough with your bipolar disorder. You're not treating your bipolar disorder well enough. If you're still taking a guy hostage, which I used to do, then you're not ready to date. You're not ready to date because you will push everybody away. So my health cards that I talk about, I'll show them in a minute, actually has an entire card for relationships. Where, in fact, in a little while, I'll read you this list. Calling too much, pushing and pulling. I hope everybody's okay there. Pushing and pulling. All kind of stuff that we do when we're depressed or manic can be stopped if we have a good treatment plan before we date. So write down all of the stuff that you do when you date and you take someone hostage. Write it all down. I do this, I do this, I do this. And I make a pact with myself that that man is never going to know what I'm going through. Because you're still going to go through it. That's my secret, and that's what I'm going to do when I go date again. That man is never going to know what I go through at the beginning. Now, when I know him better, I can say, I'm having a really tough time. Can we plan in advance for going out? And the guy always, well, sure, of course, I understand that. We can plan a week in advance. But if you're taking someone hostage, write down everything that you've done that's been a mistake in the past, every single thing. Look at it, keep the list with you, and the next time you date, you look at that list every day. I had to make a Julie's dating plan. It's 4 steps. It involves everything that I go through when I start to date, because you know what? It has nothing to do with the other person, does it? Taking someone hostage, getting sick, OCD. It doesn't matter if the guy is the God's gift to women or if it's someone you're not even interested in that much. The bipolar is going to do the same thing. Write it down, learn it. When it starts, talk to a friend, family therapist. Don't let the other person know until they are ready and you can date successfully, most definitely. Write down those hostage symptoms. Okay, hi Virginia. Ginger.
My mother and my sisters and brothers don't believe in mental illness.
Oh, cool, yeah. Wow.
I hide most of my illness from them. They don't want to hear me talk about it. They don't want. I've given them your books. I've given them Kay Davison's books. You know, highlighted sticky notes. That they don't believe in mental illness.
Okay.
This
is what she's saying is that mother and sister. She has a mother and sister who don't believe that she has a mental illness. Well, the 2 main questions that I get, believe it or not, are what if my son or daughter refuses to accept that they have a mental illness, or what if my family members don't believe I have a mental illness? So it's very, very common. And real quick,
in addition, I have epilepsy, which
means your bipolar drugs can help you at the same time.
Well, that's true, but they believe I have epilepsy, which affects the brain, but they don't believe in the bipolar, which affects the brain.
First question that I have is it super important that they believe you have bipolar?
I want them to understand why sometimes I can't do things.
Okay.
Otherwise, no.
Okay. Well, the thing is that I believe in pretty much constant. She was asking whether I was saying was it important. She says, yeah, I want them to understand what I go through, as we all want someone to understand what we go through. I'm a believer that it's time, and you want to know the best way to show people that you have bipolar is to show them the difference when you're well versus the difference when you're sick. I'm a believer that if someone sees how hard it is for me to work, and I work hard, and they see that I actually can work only 20 hours, they'll go, maybe there is something going on here. She's trying. She's doing this. She's doing that. But to be honest, that's one of the hardest questions, and it's a hard question to answer. Because we will never change someone if they believe that we don't have bipolar disorder. But I'll tell you one thing. If you get one of my cards on the back, it says comments@bipolarhappens.com. You can send an email. I have someone read my email because I can't read all of it. I have a letter that I wrote to people who don't believe in bipolar disorder that's directly from me, that goes through my symptoms, what it's like to have the illness, and then I say, if your child or daughter or friend were in a wheelchair, if your child or daughter needed insulin, if your child or daughter had a brain tumor, cancer, or a broken arm, you'd like to help them, and you'd be wonderful at that, please do the same for people with bipolar. And often, because the letter comes from me, people will listen. Then, if that doesn't work, you simply say, my mother and sister loved me very, very much. I'm going to get my support elsewhere and love them as much as I possibly can. And that's how you have to do it.
Because I've written a book about my life with bipolar. And my mother's freaking out because she thinks I'm gonna point the finger at her that she did it all and
but you know, we all have our fears and our worries, and having a child with bipolar disorder really plays into whether you're a good mother or father or not. It's a really, really big issue. But take those steps. Yeah, ask for that letter and just love them.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish that there were answers to that question that were a bit better.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, Catherine.
Hi.
Okay, guys, we have about a half hour more, and I want to get everybody, so I'll answer quickly if you ask a quick question.
My boyfriend is 19. And
How old are you?
I'm 16.
Okay. Great to have a teenager. You have no idea how important it is to be diagnosed when you're early.
Yeah.
Oh, I would give anything to have been diagnosed at 17, so congratulations.
Thanks, Grandpa.
Yeah.
we've been dating almost a year. In a month it'll be a year. And his mom died in January, and he had a psychotic break. And I think he is bipolar. And it's like, I really love him a lot. And I don't want to stop dating him, but I've never dated somebody who's bipolar before, especially because I have it. So it's really hard for me. I know all of the symptoms, but I can't relate very well for some reason, and I don't know why. Even though I know what's going on, is there anything?
That's a great question. You know, we're not all born caretakers. And her question was, thank you very much. She's 16, her boyfriend's 19. She has bipolar. Her boyfriend's mother died, and in January he had a psychotic break. I'll tell you right now, something's going on. Most people do not have psychotic breaks when a family member dies. That's actually very, very rare. First thing, you can have one psychotic break and not be bipolar. You can have a psychotic break and not be schizophrenia. But the only way that happens is if there's no symptoms before and there's no symptoms after. So that's the first thing. Did he have symptoms of bipolar before the psychotic break? Okay, well I can't diagnose, but one thing I can do is tell you how to diagnose the person because I'm not a doctor. But we know the symptoms of bipolar disorder. Without question, we have it. One thing that you can do, first of all, is take care of yourself first. Without a question, you must keep to your plan, you must keep on your meds, and then you're going to have to sit down, and you're going to have to say to your wonderful partner, you're going to say, you know what? It's really important for me to stay stable. And when I saw you have that psychotic break, it brought up a lot of stuff that I've been through. I'd love to talk to you about symptoms. I need your help with this. Can we talk about what you've experienced before the psychotic break and during the psychotic break? And let's see how similar we are, because I really believe we can work together on this. You know, and you cannot say, I think you have bipolar, I think you need help, I think you should do this. You do it as a part sort of camaraderie, and you always ask for that person to help you. What symptoms have you noticed in me that are similar to yours? How are you feeling today? Do you in the past I've noticed that you've had a lot of depression. Do you want to talk about that? Don't mention the words bipolar. Because then, when he sees that he has similar symptoms to you, what's going to happen? But you have to make it, please, I would love it if you would talk to me about this. Let me, know what's similar between us and go into it as a couple. Because if you're going to stay together, you have to have that kind of communication, period. Ask for his help. That way you can help him and you can work as a team. Don't try to help him first. That's the secret. Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Hello, Mary.
Hi. My form of bipolar, I've been in major depression for 30 years, and I'm just coming out.
You took Lamictal, right? Is it Lamictal that you took?
Still taking. But my question is, both my sons are bipolar as well, but one's a rapid cycler and the other one is textbook bipolar. And he became homicidal. And
Homicidal son. Normal.
And I tried to get him committed, and it ended up that he got arrested for trying to buy a gun to kill somebody.
I'm glad he got arrested.
I am too. But the problem is, how do you heal a relationship like that? Because he ended up spending Thanksgiving and Christmas in jail, which was not great for him, I understand that. But he got out and he got better. But he won't forgive me.
Huge question. Her question is that she has bipolar and she's doing better after 30 years of depression, which is fantastic. She has 2 sons with bipolar, not that uncommon, but very, very difficult. He got homicidal, violent, which doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen, especially with men. It does happen with women as well. It's a specific kind of mood swing that I call an irritation, anger, violence mood swing. It's very normal for a lot of people. That's why we have to treat those mood swings really early before they go that far. He went to buy a gun, but thank God he was arrested before then and he was put in jail. Now, it's estimated that 40% or more of guys in jail have a mental illness. So, first of all, he's not alone in that. But what she's asking is, he won't forgive her. How does he get him to forgive her? When I had to put Ivan into the hospital and put him in restraints, it was the greatest day of my life when he went in restraints. It was probably a huge relief for you that he went into jail. It's horrible that he's in jail, but thank God he's not out there hurting someone. Ivan probably would have walked in front of a car or done something. He had already beaten someone up in Japan that I didn't know. My sweet Ivan had beaten a stranger up, and it came out later when he went to the hospital. About 6 months after he was out of the hospital, we were driving on the freeway, and he goes, "How dare you put me in restraints? How dare you make me stay in that hospital?" And I was shocked out of my mind because I thought I was helping him. So I looked at him and I said, "To save your life and to make it able for me to stay in my relationship with you, I love you very much. You would have died if you weren't in restraints." Blah, 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 blah. And he was still upset with me quite a few years later. But I stuck to what I said. I love you with all of my heart. I believe that our justice system, as tough as it is, that you were in Christmas there and Thanksgiving there, I want you to be safe. Let's work on you being safe in the future. Don't talk. Don't say, how are you going to forgive me? What are you going to do? What's going to happen with forgiveness? Because he's not going to forgive you until he's ready. But one thing you can do, and I say this a lot, is love, love, love. I love you. I want to see you safe. I'm glad you went into the, I know it was horrible to go into the jail, but I'm glad you're safe. Can you tell me what you need right now? Can you tell me what it was like for you in jail, what it was like to be homicidal, even though you know it was bipolar? Can you tell me what it was like to buy that gun? Because I have bipolar too, and I'd like to communicate with you about that. Just like with Catherine. I don't know if you've done that with him.
He refuses treatment, so...
It's okay, if he refuses treatment and it's hard to communicate, guess what? There's the second most difficult question. And I am sorry to say this. The only thing you can do if someone refuses treatment is to set limitations on them. You're not allowed in my house if you're violent. You're not allowed in my house if you smoke pot. You're not allowed in my house if you don't take your meds. But I would love to see you outside the house. Can we go have dinner? We don't have to talk about bipolar disorder. We don't have to do this and this. I just want to be with you. But that's a tough one. That's where you go to support groups. That's where you read books like Loving Someone with Bipolar Disorder, and you give it time. Was it last year he got out?
It's been about 3 years.
Been about 3 years? Well, guess what? It's been 3 years and he's still refusing to admit he has bipolar or admit
No,
that
it's not that he won't admit it.
he just won't take his meds.
He doesn't remember that he had a part in anything.
Well, when you're manic, a lot of times you don't remember. You know, that's the tough one. That's the tough question. Love him. See if he'll read my books. Lots of times you'll be amazed. You can say this, you can go, well, I saw Julie Fast speak, and she's had some issues like this. It would be great if you'd read your book and see what she says is right on, because maybe she's a fake. Sometimes people believe it. Or, Get It Done When You're Depressed is a pretty interesting book. I need it. Would you read it and see if there's some way you can help me with my bipolar? Sometimes that works, believe it or not. But I've often thought, now there is a book by, I think it's Dr. Xavier, I know him, but I really should remember his name. It's I'm Not Sick, Leave Me Alone or something. You need to get that book without question and talk to it. But you've asked a question, Mary, I wish I had a great answer to, like I do with dating, and that's a tough one.
Sexually abused. At 15, I was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder and major depression.
Mm-hmm.
I was put on, for years, 16 years, I was on 36 medications.
Okay.
Antidepressants.
So she's saying she was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, which is a form of PTSD, which is real, which a lot of people have, and that she was on 36 medications and had major depression. Yahoo!
So it was only 3 years ago.
You win! We have a winner.
It was only 3 years ago that I did like ECTs, and in order to have the ECTs, I had to come off some of the medications. And then I went into a major manic episode, and they saw that and diagnosed me with bipolar. And I went on nickel, and I had come out of a dead zone and started to function. So I was unable to have any relationship or even live. And so due to all that, I have decided I want to date. I don't want to spend the rest of my life alone, but I'm scared to death to have a relationship. And I'm so frightened that I don't know how to pursue anything.
Right.
My friends are trying their best to push me into a relationship, but I'm scared to death and I want to back up. And I'm also, in today's society, they want to rush in. It's not, let's just wait till we're married type thing.
Okay.
And then on top of that, how do I lay on everything?
Well, first of all, let's stop worrying about laying something on someone, because that's a great question. And Sherry is saying, great question. She's been sick for most of her life, and now she's coming out of a fog. First of all, that's fantastic. So let's focus on that. That's amazing. And really, when I started coming out of my fog, we got 10 minutes. It was pretty fantastic as well. Okay. First of all, are you ready to date?
I think so.
Okay, if you're ready, you're going to take 3 months and you're going to create a plan. And I want you to read the book, Are You the One for Me by Barbara DeAngelis. Okay? I want you to read If the Buddha Dated. I want you to read The Four Agreements. And those three, and Sports Illustrated and Entertainment Weekly, because you'll have something to talk about. You know what? Do you know if you read Time, Newsweek, Sports Illustrated, and Entertainment Weekly, you can have a conversation with anybody. Seriously. But you're going to do what I did. Get a tarot reading, see a psychic. And you need to plan for dating just as you plan for work, just as you plan for anything. Now, keep away from Craigslist. Oh my God. Keep away from Match.com. Think about eHarmony if you want to do it that way. But I'll tell you the best way to date. The best way to date is put yourself in a situation where you will find a man that you want to date. For example, I'm going to join the Oregon Entrepreneurial Society because I like entrepreneurs and businessmen who golf. If I could golf, I'd golf. Then I'd golf and I'd find a boyfriend, right? Put yourself in a situation where you can date. What's your hobby?
No, working.
Well, let's say if you could, is it rafting, is it running, is it roller skating, is it reading? What's your hobby? What do you like to do most in the world? Find that out in the next 3 months. Yep. In the next 3 months, you're going to find out what you like. And at night when you go to bed, you're going to visualize what that man or that woman looks like. And you're going to say, he looks like this, he speaks this language, he understands bipolar, he does this. When the thoughts come in, I'm never going to have a partner. Well, you're young. Of course you're going to have a partner. You know? And you're going to find someone who understands and is so appreciative of what you've been through. Because that's been my experience. My gosh, Sherry, look what you've been through. What a wonderful partner you're going to be. But you're going to know that those symptoms are going to come up, you're going to start to get sick, it's going to be there, and you're going to have either a four-step plan, get my health cards is what I recommend, or loving someone with bipolar. Actually, don't read loving because it's sort of depressing because you see what it's like to be a partner with someone with this illness. You have to have a plan. So you sit down. Then you create an inner circle. I have an inner dating circle. It does not involve my mom or my brother, I can tell you that, because they don't want me to have a relationship right now because it's so stressful. I have an inner circle, including my psychic, that I am joking, sort of. But you read the books, you research, you write down what you want, you think of the symptoms. You're going to have OCD, psychosis, worry, you're going to have the PTSD from this dissociative come up. If you have a partner, if you have a dissociative identity that comes up that wants to date, well, you put that person right back because you're the one who's going to date. So create a plan. Dating is work. In fact, I want to write a book called The 90-Day Plan to Find a Man.
Please do.
Yeah. I'm going to do it one day. So there's lots that you can do. Don't start dating tomorrow. 3 months.
Did you repeat the names of the books?
I would read Are You the One for Me by Barbara DeAngelis. If the Buddha Dated, that's if you're more of the spiritual type. Listen, if you want to keep away from bad guys, I would read the Drama Kings. DRAMAKINGS. There's a lot of wonderful, wonderful men out there, but there are some that are tough, and if you are someone who wants to date women, there are also books out there. Don't read The Game, by the way. That's a book for players. You don't want to read that game. That book. But now everybody's going to look at The Game. But
What's the Buddha one?
If the Buddha Dated. Make a plan. If you want to have a better relationship with your mother, father, sister, brother, you can read those books as well. Get my health cards, read books. Give yourself a year. You'll have more friends, more family members who love you than you can possibly imagine. Okay, one more.
What's the book again for dating women?
No, I don't have one for dating women. There's lots out there because, truthfully, most of the books are written for women, more so than men. So if a guy out here wants to write a dating book, that's a good idea. You'll get a book out. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
One more, guys. I'm so sorry.
Why did you say what you did about the internet dating sites?
The internet dating sites are one of the most stressful things for regular people. I think they're absolutely horrendous. A site like Craigslist for people who are dating, because all you do is look at a picture and you meet strangers. I use Craigslist for years, so I know. You'll get a lot of people who don't tell you what's really going on. Match.com is often, it's a great site, but it's often people who are looking to get married and have children. That's just a fact. You have, if you're Jewish, JDate, J-D-A-T-E is a wonderful site. There's some other sites, like if you're really into political, you can do the Onion, stuff like that. But I would suggest eHarmony if you really want to ease into something, or truthfully, I'm not going to do the online dating. It's too stressful for me. And so I'm going to get out there and get into environments where I can meet the kind of guy I want to date. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
One more question, and then a quick thing. I know we have other events going on.
My question is, well, when I was growing up, I basically had no boundaries, or very poor boundaries. And at one point, my dad forced me to go out with somebody who raped me, but he still forced me to. So as an adult now, I'm faced with when I meet a guy, and
ask me a question. I really want to hear it, so let's do the question. And then I have a few more things to say. We'll go. Sorry, hours. Okay, we need 3 hours.
The issue I have is that when I meet a guy, I just keep the rubber.
Okay.
And I don't know how to get those boundaries.
Well, what Tammy's saying, great question. When she meets a guy, she turns to rubber. I turn to blubber. Here's another title for a book. Can I lose 20 pounds by tonight? Once again, Tammy, do you have a plan for dating?
No, I'm not.
Okay. We all have to have a 3-month plan for dating. We absolutely have to. What's it going to be like when I meet a guy I like? What feelings are going to come up? I was raped. What's it going to be like? Am I going to have PTSD? Do I need a therapist? What books do I need to read? Best book of all time, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, will help you with a lot of this stuff. It's an amazing book. But really, Tammy, if you sit down, like I said, I'm always talking about my books. There's no reason you can't use these books for dating as you would for work, as you would for mothers or fathers. So it's really important that people with bipolar expect what's going to happen. We expect that if our brother fights with us, we're going to get psychotic. Guess what? You don't fight with your brother. You walk away. You say, I love you very much, but I won't fight with you. If it means you don't see him, you don't see him. So a lot of people turn to rubber when they're dating, most definitely. But if you have a plan and you know you're going to turn to rubber, then you can turn to other people and say, I'm turning to rubber, instead of turning to that guy and freaking him out, or that woman. Okay. All right. Woo! Okay, I have a few more things. I have them on disc up here. They look like this. But I also have a disability discount off my website. On the back of Bipolar Happens, on your card, it says comments. If you write Danielle, who's my email person, and you say I'm on disability, so it's for people on disability, you can get a very significant discount. Because these books sell for $99, and the disc here with all of the books on it is outside for $49.95. If you are on disability, come up to me. I'll sell you one of these at the disability rate today. If you are so broke that you literally paid everything to come here, I'll give you one of these. Because there's no reason that money needs to get in the way. On this disc, it comes along with my books. You have the health cards, my book Bipolar Happens, tips for talking with healthcare professionals, a mood swing chart, a book called The Medical Treatment of Bipolar Disorder, and a medications chart. It's amazing. You take this and you do this, you'll be able to date, you'll be able to have relationships, etc. So come see me if you have financial issues. Otherwise, they're out there. Also, I have a newsletter sign up that's all the way sort of in the back of the room there. At bipolarhappens.com, I have a blog that's awesome. I try to post twice a day. I do take comments and reader questions. So there's a lot of help out there. So let's go have great relationships. I wish we could have done 6 hours of this, but thanks for your question.